Alright guys, we are back, and I apologize for that. My computer decided to start beeping here, giving me a weird sound, and I didn't know what it was. We are streaming live on YouTube. We are good. Alright, cool. So if anybody has any questions, drop it down in the chat. We can start. YouTube chat and Zoom chat are available. Meanwhile, I want to show you guys a quick upgrade we just put to the student portal. Real quick. This is what we got now. So now in the student portal, it's going to be updated daily, not only on WhatsApp or on Facebook. On the student portal, we're going to update right here to join the live class. So the meeting link and the meeting ID will always be on your computer. You just log into your student portal and you'll be able to just click and right into the Zoom session. Okay, so that was one upgrade we did today. There's more coming. One upgrade. I have somebody that asked me a question earlier regarding the referrals. So at the top of the page, you have this link right here to earn money with us, right? When you click on it, it doesn't matter if you're a student or if you're not a student. This is available all across our website. You can make money with us by referring, right? Once you click on it, it's going to ask you to create your account. So you get up to 20% of whatever you receive. So whatever people pay. So I'm just addressing the question. Once you log in, it's going to give you a weird page. This is where your commissions would be. And here it says get my links. Once you click on get my links, you have this long link right here, right? I know it's a long link. I know people might, some people might not, oh, I'm not going to click that once you post on Facebook or whatever. So again, the idea behind it is that it gives you this unique ID. It's unique to you. So whatever this ID here is at the end is unique to you. So that's what links people to your site. If you feel that it's too much information there for somebody to click on, then totally up to you. You have different types of places you can go to, like short URL. So it's a URL shortener. So what you can do is you copy everything that's here. You come here and you paste it. You click on shorten URL. So let me zoom in. You click on shorten URL and it's still your link, right? It's still your ID, but it's hidden behind this shorter code. If you feel like that's easier for you, you can. If you want to create something unique to you, create an account with short URL, and you can do short URL.at, for instance, /B Quintella. So my name would have been there, or /Bruno, or / whatever you prefer with your name, or whatever name you want to. Short URL /class, whatever's available. So you can create that uniquely to you. You don't have to copy and paste this big address. Don't have to. The good news is that when you put on Facebook or most social media, you post this and it's masked automatically by Facebook. It creates its own link within Facebook. So 9 out of 10 times, what I do, just so you guys see, I'm going to copy this, going to go to Facebook, and I'm going to go do a post. And once I post it, automatically creates the registration link, right? And you can literally erase all this, What did I do? Hold on. I did this before. That's how I post my stuff. There you go. So you see, I just posted get licensed now. I removed the URL after, and this is still here. So they don't see the whole ID or whatever it is that's linked to you. All right, guys? So once you post it, they just see the basic registration, newdirection.school. And it's still yours. Okay? In fact, let's see. I'm going to post it. And I'll delete it right after. But I just posted here, right? I'm going to copy link address so you guys see it. Right? And you see it's a bunch of stuff. So it's encoded by Facebook right away. So your code is somewhere embedded here. All right? So it's still attached to you. Don't worry about it. Just create the short URL if it helps you. Delete this. Post. Anyway, short URL makes it easier for you. And every time somebody purchases, is linked directly to you. Whether they purchase now or purchase in the future, or they do salesperson course and then 3 years later they do the broker's course, or they do CE credits every other year, it's still linked to you. You get 20% out of everything that they do after they register with us. They are yours, okay? So I hope that answered the question from before. And there was not everybody's question, but I got this question today and not too long ago. Well, this. Okay. Chat right here. Looks like I froze. Did I freeze? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay, we are back. Sorry about that. Thing is playing tricks on me. Hold on, let me give me an automatic kind of tan at least. Kind of okay. Yeah, not bad. All right. So you guys can hear me, you guys can see me, we're good, right? We go back to, it doesn't freeze. All right, we're good. Cool. Good. Book. All right, cool. So we're gonna ask if anybody has any questions regarding this chapter, the previous chapters. I don't see any questions here, so going to move forward. If anybody's on YouTube, let me know that you're there so I can address your questions as we go. And today we're going to talk about professional practices. Now, under professional practices, if you guys look at the state exam, there's a lot of questions. I think it's 11 questions for professional practices. There's 2 questions regarding fair housing law, 3 questions regarding fair housing laws, and disclosures. There's a bunch of them too. So this is the only chapter we're going to cover today. I mean, let's see how the chapter goes. But it's a very important chapter as well. Again, not only the fair housing, but what you must disclose or not disclose in a property, right? And a lot of people fail the exam on the portion of the disclosures and professional practices. So let's see what we got. Got Robin here, Ingrid, Bianca, Nurka, Fabiola, Yvette, Franciali, Erica, Stephanie M, Brian, Chris, Elena driving, Verona not there, David, Jeffrey, Miguel, Muslim, and Vanessa. All right, cool. So I'm going to start with fair housing laws. Under fair housing laws, we have the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Civil Rights Act or Fair Housing Act of 1968, more specifically to real estate. We got forms of illegal discrimination because, yes, there are forms of legal discrimination where you can discriminate. We have Title 8 exemptions. We have Jones versus Mayer, which we'll talk about, the second biggest thing in 1968. Equal opportunity in housing poster, Fair Housing Amendments of 1988, which adds gender, familial status, and disabilities. Discrimination by client, mainly in listings, violations and the enforcement, fair financing laws, and Americans with Disability Act. Now, just to give you a fair warning, this is the federal laws. We still have to deal with state laws, which will be next week, okay? But federal laws, they pretty much set the standard for discrimination, and then once you go to each state, they can enforce even further whatever these basic or standard laws are, okay? So let's start with the federal laws right here. So federal and state governments have enacted laws prohibiting discrimination in the national housing market. The aim of these fair housing laws or equal opportunity housing laws is to give all people in the country an equal opportunity to live wherever they wish, provided that they can afford to do so, without impediments of discrimination in the purchase, sale, rental, or financing of the property. Like I said, states' fair housing laws, they enacted their own, and again, they have to reflect the provisions of the national law and enforce a little bit more if they want. We have fair housing and local zoning. Fair Housing Act prohibits a broad range of practices that discriminate against individuals on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, familial status, and disability. But the act the federal act does not preempt local zoning laws. However, the act does apply to municipalities and other local government entities and prohibits them from making zoning or land use decisions or implementing land use policies that exclude or otherwise discriminate against protected persons, including individuals with disabilities. And you guys are going to learn, I'm going to go slow down in a little bit, just preempted, right? You're going to slow down in a little bit, going into detail that every state has their own rules, as I said, but the local zoning, there's one thing called exclusionary zoning, which is more like excluding people based on their finances as well. So there's the financial discrimination, and there's other types of discrimination, as we just read. So what federal law tells you that you can't do is block certain areas based on race, color, religion, and so on. And then there's other acts. In New Jersey, we have that, which is regarding financial discrimination as well, okay? So first thing we're going to talk about, Civil Rights Act of 1866. Now notice that the only thing I have highlighted here is 1866 in green. Why is it the only thing that I have highlighted? Because it's the only 1866 in the whole book, right? Only 1866. And what does this relate to when you see 1866? It prohibits discrimination based on race. 1866 is based on race. And let me add one more. And color. So it's based on race and color. So every time you see a question in the state exam that talks about race and color, it's a federal law that prohibits discrimination, okay, based on race and color. And that's the 1866 federal law. The next one, we have Civil Rights Act of 1968. Again, the only thing I have highlighted here, guys, is 1968. Why? Very simple. There's no other 1968 in the book. Simplest answer ever, right? What is 1968 all about? In 1968, under Title 8, they created a Fair Housing Act of the Title 8 of Civil Rights Act, right? So they created the Fair Housing Act specifically to fair housing. And this prohibits discrimination based on race, which we already knew, color, which we already knew, but then they added religion and national origin. They added religion and national origin. Okay? So, what do we have for 1866? 1866, we have race and color. 1968, what do we have? We have religion and national origin being added. It was an amendment, so they added religion and national origin. Okay? Take good note of that. Now we're going to talk about forms of illegal discrimination. The Fair Housing Act specifically prohibits such activities in residential brokerage and financing as the following. Discriminatory misrepresentation. And this, guys, again, certain things I think are common sense. Okay? So it says an agent may not conceal available properties, represent that they are not for sale or rent, or change the sale terms for the purpose of discrimination. So I'm going to look at you, you look different from me, and you know what, I don't like people that are different from me. So if you really want to rent, if you really want to buy, I'm going to change the purchase price. I'm going to change the rental price. I'm going to change the agreement altogether because you are different. Can't do that. Can I tell you, hey, it's no longer available because you are different? Could not do that. So that's illegal discrimination. Concealing or altering terms of a contract or hiding the contract altogether. Your advertisements, discriminatory advertising. An agent, we agents may not advertise residential properties in such a way as to restrict their availability to any prospective buyer or tenant. So I cannot put an advertisement and say, hey, whites only, or hey, Indians only, or hey, only Christians. Cannot do anything to that effect. Our advertisement has to be broad and open for anybody that wants to buy or rent. You got it? So no discrimination. And you would feel like this chapter would be common sense. You would feel like this chapter is something, okay, yeah, we got it. We don't need to go over this. Unfortunately, given the most recent events, and when I say recent events, over the past 10 years, if not more than that, but especially over the past 10 years between previous administration, this current administration, and we've seen a lot of friction when it comes to race, color, religion, things that we thought they were starting to die down. They're back here. Like we're dealing with it again, right? And to a certain extent, in certain areas, it's getting worse and worse. That's why this is still very important that we teach across the board. As an agent, yesterday I mentioned as an agent you couldn't have politics involved. No, as an agent, you don't have a race. Okay, your race is real estate. You're a realtor, and so is everybody else, and your customers are real estate customers, period. Okay, as an agent, once you engage in this business, don't have color, don't have religion, don't have national origin. Everything is real estate. You want to make money? There's only one color, green. Because if you don't do things right by your client, you'll never see that green. And I love green. I don't know about you, but I love green. Like one of my favorite colors, in case you haven't noticed, right? What's really important is green. Just saying, right? As far as religion, hey, whatever feeds my kids, that's my religion. That's what I'm doing right now. You understand? So start thinking that way. I'm not telling you that you guys discriminate, but if you do at one point, and sometimes we do subconsciously, we're going to talk about that one type of discrimination we do subconsciously. Just try to turn off that switch of whatever your personal beliefs are. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. You want to do this business, separate yourself from any type of anger, hate, or anything like that. Green is the way to go. Simple. Is that a deal? Thumbs up. Great. Because this chapter is going to be very complicated for a lot of people. It was for me, even though I did not discriminate. One of the questions is, when can you discriminate? And then you're like, well, I could lose my license if I discriminate. But there's exceptions. And that's what we're going to learn with Title 8, which is the Fair Housing Act. So make sure you do pay attention. There are some things you can do, some things you can't do. The majority of them you can't do. All right? So advertising must be broad. How about providing unequal services? Can't. Everybody's the same. Again, so you cannot alter the nature or quality of brokerage services. What does that mean? And by the way, this is not only for race, color, sex, national origin, or religion. We'll talk about later how there are testers or mystery shoppers that go out to businesses and see how they act. So secret shoppers, whatever you want to call it. But so even for financial capabilities, there's a lot of people that they treat things. You see a lot of this in the car industry, but also in the real estate industry, where you walk into the store. Let's think about the cars, right? You walk into a Lamborghini store, and there's a great movie where DMX plays a role. He has a bunch of money and goes and sees a Lamborghini and brings the cash, right? But the way he walks into the store, everybody's is looking at him like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here, right? So there's obviously a different treatment just by the way somebody looks. So careful. The way somebody looks or the way somebody dresses doesn't really mean they have or don't have money, right? So that assumption right there, that subconscious assumption, right there is the first thing that we do, right, in discrimination, right there. Oh, you can't afford $1 million house. I'm not even going to waste my time. So there's people that test you on this. There's people that volunteer to come test you on that, right? So very careful. It's not only for race, color, sex, national origin, religion, or anything like that. It's overall. If they feel there's some type of discrimination because they look or might feel like they're different, you're going to get written up. Okay? That brings us to steering. Sorry, Erica wrote, happened to me the other day when you went to get the Kia. No? Another car? You got another car? Yeah, you're balling. How many cars are you getting? Really? They looked at you because of a Volvo? I mean, imagine if you go in the suits to try to buy a bicycle. The same concept. You were wearing sweats and a hoodie. No one approached you. But it is. Yep. Same thing. When a guy started with, let's see your credit. Go ahead, sue them. Go for it. Do it. That happened to me also the other day. Pedro and I went to see a couple of cars. And they didn't give us the time of the day right away because I was like this. Right? This doesn't show anything. It just says New Direction School, Bruno instructor, that's it. We walked in, and the guy is just another person. Finally got to us, and we said we want this car, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, it's a great car. What do you do? And then I said, I'm in real estate. I'm a real estate investor, real estate instructor, and he's a realtor, the broker of record. Oh, okay, cool. And now he started talking to us. Then as soon as we said that we wanted 2 of those, right? As soon as we said we wanted 2 of those, he started yelling, hey, everyone, I'm selling 2 cars today. So now we're important. Yeah, so I guess he was selling because we walked out after a while. Definitely not getting our business. Anyway, as soon as we said what we do, not even credit matter. Don't worry, I'm definitely going to sell you this car. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so back to this. Very important, guys. Lawsuits can happen every day, and you could lose your license. So steering. Remember I said that sometimes our subconscious mind plays tricks on us? Right. Steering is one of them. Let's talk about steering. Let's see. We have Elena and we have Miguel. In front of you guys, what do you have? Steering wheels, right? Miguel's holding on to one. Elena looks like she's holding on to one as well. So they have steering wheels. What are you doing with the steering wheel? It takes you to or away from a particular area. That's what it is. So steering in real estate is channeling, so directing or indirectly channeling customers towards or away from a particular area. So Erica, I'm going to pick on you. Since you brought that up, I'm going to pick on you. I'm going to look at you and say, you want to buy a 2-family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? And you want to buy in Clark, right? Not saying that Clark is a white town, right? But you want to buy in Clark? Yeah, no, I don't think you fit this area. So I'll steer you away from Clark. You guys think that's right? If Erica wants to live in Clark, should I steer her away from it just because I believe she's not the right fit for that particular area? Of course not. But guess what? Sometimes we do it on purpose. Sometimes we don't do it on purpose. It's just an assumption. And here we are looking for houses not in Clark. Okay? So steering could be done in a very subtle way that people do not even realize that's what's happening. Sometimes we don't do it on purpose. Sometimes we do. Right? The next one, blockbusting. Blockbusting, also called panic peddling, is scaring to sell. So blockbusting is when you're scaring someone to sell what they have. In real estate, you're scaring somebody to sell what they have. Okay? If you guys remember Blockbuster, I always bring this because it's easy. Blockbuster was a movie rental place, right? So for VHS, when those existed, DVD, when those came out, right? And those no longer exists. It evolved to what we now know as Netflix, for instance, right? But before Netflix, for those of you that probably don't know, maybe too young to know, there was Blockbusting. And what was the key thing about Blockbusting? It operated much like Black Friday, right? With Black Friday is, hey, rush here now or you're going to lose the deal of your lifetime. With Blockbusting is rush here now or you're going to lose the movie that just came out from the theaters into our store. Because Blockbusting would secure the rights to the first edition of that particular movie that came out from the theaters, right? So if you wanted to watch it, that's where it was at, Blockbuster. And they would scare you. If you don't do it now, you'll lose it. In real estate, it's the same thing. I'm going to scare you to sell because of something, right? And that something is the change in ethnic or social makeup of the neighborhood. So as soon as minority groups are moving into a particular area, agents start knocking on doors and say, hey, you see who's coming? You see these people? As soon as they settle, that's it. The value of your house is going to go down. And as soon as that value goes down, it's going to be very hard to get it back up. So sell now before you lose the value. Oh, and if these people become your tenants, these people, they're going to destroy everything you have. So don't rent. Don't rent to them. Sell now. Everything's going to change. What you know right now about this town is going to change. And these are the tactics, right? They start scaring people from these changes, right? And as soon as these changes occur, they realize, oh, it was not that bad, right? But what do blockbusters do? Not only did I scare you to sell to the people that I scared you from, right? I'm also going to turn around and say, hey, people moving in, here's a house for sale. So I'm going to sell your house to the people I scared you from. You guys understand? So blockbusting, 100% illegal. Redlining. What is redlining? So a few years ago, this is prohibited, but a few years ago, what they were doing in redlining was this. This is Newark, Elizabeth, as an example, and they would put a red line around the whole Newark. That means we do not lend or insure in this area. Redlining was literally, I don't care what your financial qualifications are, that's where you live, you're not getting a loan from us. We're not insuring you. All right, so that became illegal. That became illegal under federal law. That became illegal. In fact, so always remember, when it's refused to make loans or insurance, actually, because what the lender was doing was drawing a line around the area in the map, like I just said, and denying all financing in that encircled area. Fair Housing Act allows exemptions under a few specific circumstances. I'm sorry. So I have a question from Verona. Blockbusting and steering are similar. Kinda. So the steering is, I'm taking you, the buyer, away from a particular area or to a particular area. Blockbusting, I'm scaring the seller of the people you're trying to bring to or away from that area. Okay, so blockbusting is scaring the seller into selling. The steering is taking the client, the buyer, from one area to another based on our perception. All right, so think about it. One is for sellers, one is for buyers. Let's put it like that, okay? One is scaring, so kind of like scaring you and forcing you into do something. The other one is just, I'm dragging you along. I'm not scaring you, I'm just saying, hey, this is where you should be versus over there. You got it? So back to this, exemptions in the Fair Housing Act. Again, this is federal, guys. Here's the first exemption. A privately owned single-family home where no broker is used and no discrimination, no discriminatory advertising is used with certain additional conditions. So can I discriminate as a homeowner of a single-family home? Yes. If I'm not using a broker, yes. If I'm not using direct discriminatory advertisement, yes, I can discriminate. All right. It doesn't state here, but with this law comes these additional conditions, is you can only do this once every 2 years. So you want to discriminate, Mr. Single Homeowner, you can discriminate, but only once every 2 years, right? The other thing that comes with it is you cannot own more than 3 single-family homes. If you own a 4th single-family home, you can no longer discriminate. So how do we make discrimination legal? We just put a cap. Up to 3 single families, no problem. You're not using a broker, salesperson, or anything like that? No problem. Discriminatory advertisement? None of it? Great, no problem. Once they're at your door, you can kick them out because they do not fit the pattern that you were expecting, right? So it's okay to discriminate under federal law if you meet those conditions. The next one is the rental of an apartment in a 1 to 4 unit building or 1 to 4 family building where the owner is also occupant. So let me write here. Owner occupied 1 to 4 unit or 1 to 4 family building. Owner occupied. For federal law, if it's a 1 to 4 family that you live in, 1 to 4 family that you live in, you can discriminate against the other 3 units that will occupy that same building. If it's an investment property that you do not live in, then you cannot discriminate at all. So the exemption in this scenario is you occupy one of the units. You guys got it? Write it down. Next one, facilities owned by private clubs and leased non-commercially to members. And guys, I'm going to compare those two here with the same type of comparison. I'm going to put them in the same category. I don't want anybody offended because there's a point to this, okay? So, Yvette, I'll address that later, okay? Private clubs or leased non-commercially to members, and facilities owned by religious organizations, right? So religious and private clubs. These are exempt as well, so they can discriminate. Why am I putting private clubs and religious organizations into the same category? Wait, it gets worse. It's the same as a gym membership. If you have a 24-hour fitness and you have a retro fitness, can these people go work out over here? Why not? Because they are not members. The key word here is membership. So these are not commercially leased. Right here, it says them both, not commercially leased. That means I'm advertising to members only. If you are a member of this church, let's say, and our church collected enough money to buy a building, and this building has 100 units, and the 100 units are available to the members of the church, then I'm not discriminating because of race, color, national origin, or anything like that. I'm discriminating because you're not a member of this church and it was intended for that purpose. You got it? The same way with private clubs. I am not discriminating based on religion, national origin, gender, sex, race, color, whatever. No, you're just not a member. So if the 20 of us decide to buy a building right now, and the building was created or purchased and rehabbed and whatever for us to use, again, it's an issue with membership. And now it's okay to discriminate because you are not a member of this club. You guys got it? So again, it's not discriminating based on religion. It became a club and you are not a member of it. You guys good? Great, because there is almost guaranteed to be some type of question regarding one of these here in comparison to the New Jersey or New York or whatever state exam. No pets, Yvette, no pets is not discriminatory as long as these are not guide or service pets. So if they're guide or service pets, we have to allow them. You got it? Can I charge an additional monthly fee, a pet fee? Sure. Can I charge an additional deposit? Yes. But I cannot say no because if I accept you, I have to accept your guide or service pet or emotional support, which is a simple application online and nobody's entitled to question you. Anyway, that's why I keep my kids around. They're my emotional support. Franciale, I'm waiting. Okay, there you go. When you rent with the owner, oh, okay, there was more to it. When you rent with the owner, they do discriminate people. Is anything that the person can do? So you're saying if you rent from me and not through a realtor, that's what you're asking? So if you rent from me, is there anything that you can do? Well, if it's my house, right, and I live in it, so 1 to 4 family, this is under federal law. State law is a little different, stricter. You might not be able to do any of these things that I'm telling you right now. Federal law allows you 1 to 4 family. If I live there and you show up at my door and I say, not to you, no. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Because I'm allowed to do this once every 2 years. So the only thing you can do is put a complaint, and that starts my 2-year non-discriminatory period. I have to wait 2 years before I can kick somebody out again. You see that happening a lot, of course, because nobody complains. How do you know the 2-year period? There's no countdown timer. There's no app, right? I'm going to create the discriminatory app, right? Mr. Homeowner, did you ever discriminate? Use this app and be safe. Click, 2 years countdown. No, does not exist. All right, so unless somebody starts a complaint, those 2 years virtually do not exist. I can discriminate all day, every day, until somebody says something. And that's how people get away with things. Okay? The whole bullying, discrimination for me is a type of bullying. So the whole bullying subject is until somebody does something, nobody cares. And they'll keep on bullying you, whatever way it might be. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to enforcement, Robin. We're going to get to how do you file complaints and what can you do. Yep. All right, next. The next thing we have is in 1968, there was a second significant movement, not only the Fair Housing Act. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Which unfortunately is not done, especially with people that... Well, the people not being documented, okay? Let's take the legal out of it. People being undocumented in this country, they still have rights. They're humans. That's the thing that a lot of people need to understand, right? There's a worldwide accord on human rights. And if the conditions are available for one, they have to be available for all, okay? So when it comes to discrimination, it does not matter your legal status. Discriminating is discriminating, okay? So people could take action. Will it bring other consequences? Depending on what the situation is, your legal status might come into play. But for rentals, for employment, you will get compensation, but you might get deported too. So that's why I always consult with attorneys regarding that, whatever the particular matter is. All right, so back to this. In 1968, there's a second significant movement aside from the Fair Housing Act, or Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act, I'm sorry, that created the Fair Housing Act. And the second movement was the Supreme Court rule on in Jones versus Mayer. So Jones was an African American that sued Alfred H. Mayer Company, and he sued Alfred H. Mayer Company for not selling him a house in St. Louis County, Missouri, based on race. So the Supreme Court rule came to say pretty much that, going back up, if the first law in discrimination, right there, if the first law in discrimination was the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and said that we cannot discriminate based on race, how can we, 102 years later, ignore the original law? You understand what I'm saying? The court said, no, even though in 1968 we created exemptions under the Fair Housing Act, we created exemptions of when you can discriminate or not, right? The basis of all this was race. So the answer was no. No one can discriminate if it's based on race. No one. There's no exceptions. no exceptions. No one can discriminate if it's based on race. Write this down in big, bold letters somewhere. Erica, you don't need to write. There's paper. You don't need to write it there. Okay? But write this down somewhere, because this is true for federal law. This is true for state law. Any state follows the same rule. If it's based on race, you cannot discriminate. If it's based on race, you cannot discriminate at all. Doesn't matter if it's owner occupied. It does not matter if it's a single family and you're not using a broker or any type of discriminatory advertisement. It does not matter if it's different clubs. No. If the discrimination is based on race, it's 100% illegal, according to 1866 law. Now, in 1972, and don't worry about this date now, the key dates were 1866 and 1968. Okay, those are key dates to remember. In 1972, HUD instituted a requirement that brokers display a standard HUD poster. So we have a federal poster that must be displayed in every single real estate office. And if you have a showroom or a model home or model apartment somewhere in a community, you have to include this as well. The federal and state poster in most states. The poster affirms that the brokers complies with fair housing laws in selling, renting, advertising, and financing residential properties. Failure to display this poster may be construed as discrimination. Now, I don't know about you, but I could walk around with this book and say, hey, I know the law, right? The whole real estate book. I can walk around with this, right? It's the same thing as a fake religious person. They can walk around with Bibles, with the Qurans. They can walk around with whatever they want. If they don't practice what's there, then what's the point? Me having the poster is not going to change anything as far as my attitude, my actions, right? But not having the poster is the first step when they investigate you and have that checkbox right there. Poster. Nope. First step, discrimination. Next. And they keep on investigating the office, the people, and everything else. Not having the poster, it's an indicator that you might discriminate. Okay? Amendments to the Federal Fair Housing Act prohibit discrimination based on sex. So obviously, we're talking about gender, right? We're talking about gender and discrimination against handicapped persons and families with children. So this is the 1988. Yep, there you go. 1988 Fair Housing Amendments. So gender, familial status, and people with disabilities, including AIDS. You cannot discriminate. Now, of course, again, there are certain exemptions. These exemptions are for age and familial status. Familial status or family status is families with children, so under the age of 18. But you guys know there are certain places that are directed only to senior citizens, correct? So there's communities that are specifically for that. So if you think about those communities as a membership, then it's okay to say no children. You guys got it? Yes? Great. Now, there's two types, well, third here with the government designated retirement housing, but in the broad real estate market, there's two types of senior housing that we commonly know. The most common of them is this one, the 55 years of age. Okay? But there's another one, which most people do not know, which is the 62 years of age or older. What is the difference between these two? Well, here, all residents must be 62 years of age or older. In this one, only 80% of the units must be occupied by at least one person that is 55 years of age or older. Okay? Again, provided that this is specific, right? It's disclosed everywhere that these were intended for people that are older. So the 55 plus or senior residences only. All right? So can they say no children? Yes, this is the exemption. If they show that that was the intent, right? That was the membership was senior citizens, then can they discriminate? Yes. Can they, in the 55 plus, allow children? Well, only one person in the household must be 55. Here, all the people in the household must be at least 62. You guys see the difference? Okay, so they determine their rules as far as requirements for familial status. Okay. Oh, by the way, you might in my Quizlet, you might see this towards this, which is Housing for Older Persons Act. Okay, Housing for Older Persons Act, and that's what talks about senior housing. HOPA. So if you see that in Quizlets, we're talking about this right here. Okay. I did talk about this before. If you have no more than 3 houses, you can discriminate against whatever you want. So if you don't want family with children, well, as long as you have residential dwellings, right, it's okay. Or if it's a single family that's sold or rented by owners who do not have more than these 3 houses. Discrimination by the client. Why is this here? Why is discrimination by the client here? What do you have to do with discrimination by the client? What's your take in this? Remember, you're the agent for the client, right? So technically, whatever your client wants is what you want. Technically, what the client does is what you do. Technically, what the client is what you are. You know why? Because you accepted to be the agent. So what we're trying to say here is, whatever, if your client intends to discriminate, what should you do? Reject that client. All right? There's plenty of fish in the water. There's plenty of clients out there. If your client discriminates, walk away, because you could lose your license, not them. You could get sued as well as they can. So as we say right here, fair housing laws apply to home sellers as well as to agents, with the exception of the exemptions previously cited. But if an agent goes along, this is in green, so very important, maybe not for state exam, it might show, might not, but in real life, acting as an agent, this will affect you. If an agent goes along with a client's discriminatory act, then the agent is equally liable for the violation. Agent is equally liable for the violation. Equally liable for the violation. Okay? It is thus imperative to avoid complicity with client discrimination. Further, agents should withdraw from any relationship where client discrimination occurs. Any questions here? Okay, good. Hopefully, when you get your license, you'll remember at least this part. I have somebody not from our agency. Not that it would not happen in our agency. Unfortunately, we cannot control everybody. We would be the broker will be equally responsible for whatever the agent does. But in another agency, I've seen this one particular agent advertising a property in Hillside, and his client was very specific. I don't want this particular group of people to rent from me. Okay? What did the agent do? His advertisement was not discriminatory, but every time there was contact from that particular group of people, every time there was contact, he would say, well, it's no longer available. It's under contract. Whatever it might be. But he would give some type of excuse. The problem is, as I told him, I don't even know why people confide in me these things, knowing that I'm the instructor, knowing that I know the law. Sometimes it's tough. So he tells me that when people contact him after 3 weeks of the property still being available, well, I thought you said it wasn't available. Yeah, that contract fell through, but he already has another one. When it doesn't. So if the person, let's say they don't want Portuguese people there as an example, and I apply for it, and he tells me, well, Bruno, I'm sorry, but it's already under contract. Okay. So I'll keep on searching and searching. Nothing pops up, but that one's still advertised. That particular property that he said was under contract. How long does it take to do a rental? Right? It's not a purchase agreement where it could take 3 months. It's a rental. So after 3 weeks it's still available, I call again. Hey, person such and such, I see that it's still available. I would like to rent. I saw the property, the pictures and all that. I'm very much interested. Right? And he tells me, I'm sorry, it was under contract. It fell through. Somebody else came in and it's now in the contract again. How would you feel? Don't you think that's enough to take some type of action? Right? So people, you are gambling with your license when you do this type of stuff. I don't know what it's worth to you. A lot of people probably think, well, it was only $500 or less, so what do I have to lose, right? But it's not your license that you're losing only. We're going to talk about this later. These are huge lawsuits. Could be millions of dollars that you have to pay, you and the homeowner, the landlord or seller. It could even mean years in jail. You guys got it? So as I said to a friend of mine not too long ago, you're the broker. It's your license. Do whatever. I'm not doing it. It was regarding something else, but my answer was just like that. You're the broker. It's your license. I'm not putting my license on the line for nobody. You got it? So I'll address the biggest consequences in a little bit, Elena. Yeah, you could lose your license, you could be fined, and you could even go to jail. But we're going to go over that. I just want you to be conscious of this. You're equally liable. So if a client expresses any type of discriminatory actions or thoughts, right, or preferences, immediately let them know we cannot discriminate. So I cannot do what you're asking me. I have to obey, right? If you guys remember laws of agency, we have to obey, right? Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. So we have to obey whatever the client says. But we're talking about lawful actions, okay? So if they tell me, hey, don't want this type of people, that's not lawful. That's illegal, as we're talking about in this chapter. And you accepting it become equally liable. So put that clearly in your mind, okay? Now, persons who feel that they have been discriminated against under the Fair Housing Law may file a complaint with the office. So, Robin, with the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity within the HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, or they may file a federal lawsuit or state. Okay? So, I want to point out one more thing here. Ready? You guys see what it says? All right, let me see if I can zoom a little bit more. Make it very clear for you. Persons who feel. I don't have to prove discrimination. You do. You have to prove they didn't discriminate. If I feel discriminated against, I can take actions against you. You got it? Persons who feel. Yep. So what do? You're going to file a complaint with HUD. and you have 1 year from the alleged discrimination. You have 1 year to file that complaint. 1 year. If you go to federal court, you have 2 years. But complaint with HUD, 1 year. Federal court, 2 years. So these are statutes of limitation. There's a limit of time for people to take that action. Okay? So again, you have 1 year to file with HUD or 2 years to file with state or federal court. All right? Any questions before I move forward? Okay, Verona. Vanessa's in the dark today. Elena, what's wrong with you? I got you. I'm just messing with you. Jeffrey can't see it. You're blocking. Your hair is blocking his view. Okay, so if they feel discriminated against, what protects the realtor? Like I said, stop working with people that you might feel that they intend to discriminate. Now, if they do discriminate, then unfortunately, and you did not know, unfortunately, you are taking down the same rabbit hole. You have to deal with it. That's why we have insurance for that. And then also proving that you're not that type of person. So there's going to be obviously an investigation. Just because there's a lawsuit against you doesn't mean it's going to conclude against you, right? But could you be taken with the seller or the buyer into a lawsuit? Yeah. Okay. That's why you got to know what type of clients you have, which is very difficult sometimes, especially when somebody pops up out of nowhere and says, hey, I saw your number. You're a realtor. Can you help me? Right? So yeah, one of the first questions is, hi, my name is Bruno. Do you discriminate? Don't do that. Go. Bianca, I told you it was not easy. Morning and evening, it's not easy. Not easy. Like yawning over there, like, oh my God, I heard you in the morning. I have to hear you in the evening. Yeah, stuff. I cannot hear myself anymore. I'm done. I'm waiting for Friday already. Nurika, you didn't have to agree. Nurika's like, yep. Bro, that's not fair. I know. That's why we have to be professionals and understand clients to the best of our ability. As soon as you feel that there's some type of discriminatory bone in that person, right? You feel like, oh, wait, what was that? What did you say? Right? Did I hear you right? Just so you know, we cannot discriminate. These are federal and state laws. We can both get sued and go to jail. So as soon as you feel that that person might discriminate, start screening the person to see to what extent they discriminate. How could that impact your profession or the deal itself? You got it? So Juliana says, and have good insurance. Your insurance comes through your broker most of the times. Errors and omissions insurance, right? Comes through your broker. But that doesn't mean you can go out and say, hey, big shirt that says, sue me, I'm insured. No, don't do that. How often does the buyer discriminate versus the seller? Well, not as much as sellers, because buyers, they just want to move in and they know the neighborhood and that's where they want to go to. But it did happen to my dad. He's a realtor as well. It did happen a few years back. I gave him a client, right? Yes, it was my fault. I did not want to deal with that client, and I said, hey, Dad, here's a client, right? So I never gave him anything. So it was like my almost Christmas gift. Actually, it was his birthday gift because it was right before his birthday. So, hey, Dad, take this client. Anyway, so, and he made $18,000 out of that client, right? The issue was he was showing properties in an area that was predominantly Jewish, so Manalapan, right? And the buyer was hardcore Italian Catholic, Roman Catholic person. And when I say hardcore, I didn't mean like hardcore he goes to church, hardcore like he curses a lot, right? Very Catholic of him. So he got into see property. Oh, I love hypocrisy. I'm sorry. But anyway, so he goes to see these properties with my dad, and my dad's telling me the stories, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I give as a gift to my dad? This was really bad. Right? But my dad never abandoned. He stood by his side. So he goes see these properties, and as soon as he walks into this to the house, and he saw something that would show that the property was owned by somebody that was Jewish, he would curse everybody out, including my dad. I'm not buying from no effing Jew. Just like that. Now, you guys are laughing. This is not funny at all. Because imagine having kids around. And he did this with the wife, with the kids, everybody around. He didn't care. Right? Again, very Catholic of him. He walked out like a saint. Right? On to the next property. This happened all through, I think they saw 6 or 7 properties. Right? To the point, just so you guys understand, how often does this happen? This is an isolated case. But to the point where my dad found a house and both of them liked it. They walk through the house, everything's cool. As soon as they get to the backyard, right before you enter the house from the backyard, there was a symbol there that says, hey, we're Jewish, right? My dad talks to the wife and says, hey, we need to have your husband look away when he comes right back in. He could not see that right there. You guys love the house, so let's roll with this one, please. Right? So between my dad and the wife, they tried everything for him not to see that right by the door, there was something there. Did not work. The guy loved the house. Everything was perfect. Walking back in, as much as they were trying to distract him in a different direction, he sees that thing kind of like says, hey, please look at me. I think the thing started calling him. He sees it, storms out of the house, cursing everybody out again. Paul, for the last time, my dad, for the last time, I'm not buying from no effing Jew. Just like that. So is it possible to have this? Yes. What should my dad have done? Drop the client. Right? Just how it is. Should have. And I'm not talking bad about my dad. I'm not talking bad about the clients. I'm just talking about the actions that were taken. What should have been done different. Right? Because addressing the question that just came up, do people file a complaint on purpose to get something out of it? Is that common? These people, all the clients that he went to see the property, all these sellers, yeah, they could have complained against the potential buyer, against the realtor, against the broker. They could have. They should have. I would be offended. You understand? Especially when it's me, the wife, and the kids. I would have been offended. So these situations do happen, and you have to be very, very careful. The moment you see that this person intends, walk away. I cannot work with you. Talk to your broker. See what you can do. Right? How can we, without causing too many problems, how can we walk away from this situation? What should I tell the client? You guys understand? So, it doesn't stop them, but it protects you, Verona. It does not stop them from filing a complaint against you, but at least you can say, yeah, as soon as I saw it, I walked away. You got it? So it shows that you are acting in good faith. Even though your client wasn't, you were. Okay? And believe me, we can't control people's mouths, unfortunately. Just the way it is. All right, so next, penalties. I saw Pedro turn his camera on. I thought he was going to join us for a second. Anyway, penalties. If discrimination is confirmed in court, confirmed. So now I felt like it. I complained. Now it's confirmed. The respondent may be enjoined to cease practicing his or her business. So yeah, the lawsuit is against your client, but you could be added and maybe lose your license. For example, a discriminating home builder may be restrained from selling available properties to buyers. Also, the plaintiff may be compensated for damages, including humiliation, suffering, pain. Okay? How do you quantify or attribute a value to humiliation, suffering, and pain? Very difficult, right? In addition, the injured party may seek equitable relief, money, including forcing the guilty party to complete a denied action, such as selling or renting the property. And finally, courts may impose civil penalties for first-time or repeat offenders. And guys, it does not say here, it does not say it, but these penalties come with no dollar limit. What does that mean? You're going to pay for actual damages, and you're going to pay for what's called punitive damages. So the judge attributes a value as punishment for you not to do it again. Okay? No dollar limit. So raise your hand if you intend to discriminate. Oh, just because I said no dollar limit, right? If I said it was a $5 fine, all of you would have been like 2 hands up, right? Yeah, don't discriminate. Not worth it. Only some people are protected against discrimination, apparently. All right. Fair financing laws. We talked about this several times, so I'm going to move right through. Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Everybody's entitled to apply for a loan regardless of their race, color, religion, national origin, and so on, right? You guys remember this? Talked in financing twice, right? This right here is the federal poster that must be displayed everywhere. Comes with the equal housing. And it says right in the middle, it is illegal to discriminate against any person because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, family status, or national origin. This poster must be displayed everywhere. So if you have a real estate office, must be there. If you have a model home or apartment or unit, must be there. Okay? So everywhere where you're conducting business as a broker or a salesperson, it must be there. Okay? Next thing we have, Americans with Disabilities Act. Americans with Disabilities Act. Obviously, this is an act, a law that passed to protect people that have disabilities, correct? So, does this apply everywhere? The answer is no, and this is what you need to pay attention and remember when it comes to ADA. The ADA prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities. That's simple, right? In all areas. Says your book doesn't have that? Hold on. Check. Oh yeah, section was, it says here it was added. So you have here, it was, I have here the notes that they added that Americans with Disability Act. Okay. So it's in the PDF that you have. So nonetheless, it's Americans with Disability. It's to protect people from discrimination, people that have disabilities. But it's in all areas of public life, including employment, education, transportation, and facilities that are open to the general public. What do I mean open to the general public? We're not talking about your primary residence. We're not talking about a 1 to 4 family. We're talking about commercial properties. So the Americans with Disability Act pretty much applies to, on the next page, the things you need to remember. It's very, very simple, guys. It applies to public accommodations. So the ADA, it's only for commercial style properties, so commercial facilities and public accommodations. That's what you need to remember. ADA, people with disabilities are protected against discrimination in public and commercial facilities. Requirements for this act. Okay. It says, so we're going to talk about property management later in chapter 24, so it's going to be repeated there. But it says that the act requires landlords in certain circumstances to modify their housing and facilities so that disabled persons can access them without hindrance, right? The thing is, what I have here in green, is that I have to have reasonable accommodations. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it. I have to have reasonable accommodations. What is reasonable? I am not making extreme changes to the building. The physical modifications that I have to do to a building will be something like widening doorways, changing door hardware, how they open or close, installing ramps, lowering wall-mounted telephones, keypads, braille signage on the elevator, for instance, or even auditory signals on the elevator. So these are things that are simple, and that's how I can sue you. Because if it was that simple, why didn't you do it? That's how they see it. Do I have to restructure the whole building? No, I don't have to. We have to determine whether it's going to be a whole restructuring or retrofitting the building. And if it's not practical, if it's an extensive expense, do I have to do it? No. So in sum, this is what we're looking at. ADA, write this down somewhere. ADA, sorry, where do you want me to roll up? Right here? More? Okay. It's also in the PDF in the student portal, so it's separated by chapters. But what you need to remember, you need to write it down, is ADA, American with Disability Act, right? In commercial properties. Protect against discrimination in commercial properties. Reasonable accommodations. Reasonable accommodations. No extent, so just quick bullet points. No extensive or expensive remodeling or retrofitting. So I don't have to rearrange my whole building and put an elevator because somebody comes in a wheelchair. But if it's easy to put a ramp to get onto the first floor at least, why didn't you? If it's easy to separate a few parking spaces for handicap, why didn't you? It's not like it's going to change much. So again, ADA is for people with disabilities. It applies to commercial properties only, well, and public property. So put everything under commercial, right? Reasonable accommodations. So we have to provide reasonable accommodations, right? And does not force me to do any extensive or expensive remodeling or retrofitting. It has to be easy. And that's, again, how they can sue us. It has to be easy. If it's that easy, why didn't you do it? Like Braille on the elevator buttons. How hard is that? Right? Why didn't you do it? Auditory signals, so we know that the door opened. Right? And hopefully something is there. Right? Ding. Okay, here we go. Does that make sense? It's easy. It's cheap. Why didn't you do it? These will be the questions when it comes to ADA. Reasonable accommodations. Okay. Next, we have property disclosures. Property disclosures, I have page 302. The sections I'm going to talk about now. It says these sections were added here and they were removed from chapter 14. So in your chapter 14, you have property disclosures. You guys go check real quick and let me know. Chapter 14, those that have the version 1 of the book. Supposedly in the next 2 weeks. They said, well, they said this week or next week, we're going to get the second edition out. Did you find it? What? Property disclosures before I move forward. It's there? Okay. What page are you on? If you don't mind me asking. All right, everybody, page 196. Thank you. All right, so property disclosures. It says residential property condition, environmental issues, warranties, inspections, and homeowner association. So seller disclosure form. Do you guys remember that we talked about the seller's property condition disclosure form? Right, when we talked about not being your monkey. Remember I played that video? Okay, not my monkey. Very important because we need to point fingers. We need to say, hey, the seller told me so. Very simple. So there's a form that will be called a seller's property condition disclosure form. And it's where the seller says, to the best of my knowledge, this is the condition of the property. The roof is 5 years old. For instance, there's no leaks. There's no mold. I don't know, right? Whatever it might be. And they sign at the end stating that that's to the best of their knowledge. Okay. Now, the typical form requires the seller to affirm whether or not the problems exist, as I said, in any of the listed features or systems of the property. In denying that the problem exists, the seller claims to have no knowledge of a defect. So if a defect in fact exists, the seller can be held liable for intentional misrepresentation. So what are we saying here? If they lie, you are covered. Again, they told me so. Okay. The third possible response to property condition question is that of no representation. Here, the seller makes no claim of knowledge as to whether the problem exists. With this answer, the seller is no longer liable for disclosure of any kind of particular feature, whether a defect is known or otherwise. Simple. If I'm not the, even though I'm the owner of a house, I'm not the pro at certain things. So I prefer to say I have no knowledge, right? And let the professional, so I'll make no representation on this statement, and have the professional home inspector, like radon. Radon is a natural radioactive gas. How would I know if there's radon unless I tested it, right? Lead-based paint. How would I know if there's lead-based paint unless I tested it? Neither one of these I am required to test for. You got it? So it's preferable to say, I do not know, than to say, no, there's no radon or there's no lead-based paint. The moment you say no, and in fact there is, you made a statement. You got it? So statements make you liable. Never, never, ever, ever, ever make a statement as an agent or as a seller or as a buyer or anything in life. Never make a statement of something you do not know, because it could bite you later on. All right? Licensee's role in disclosures. The residential property reseller must comply with the property's condition disclosure requirement, whether an agent is employed in the transaction or not. But if an agent is involved in the transaction, the agent must disclose any and all material facts that he or she knows or should reasonably know about the property, regardless of whether the seller may have disclosed on the form. Do you guys remember in the previous chapter, I said, as far as disclosures, when we talked about care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure, right, agency law, and I said, anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed, right? I said that regardless of who you represent. If I represent the seller, I know there's issues with the property, I must pass that along to the buyer. Okay? That is key. Remember for state exam, because a lot of you will fall into 303. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, but it's on the, like I said, if you guys want to download just the chapter itself, it should be there. It's the agent's responsibility, yes. So what we're saying here, again, it's very simple. If it affects the, oh, it's there under agent's responsibility, that's what Franciale is saying. Definitely. Okay. So if you feel that it's something that could affect the transaction, like knowing that there's mold, for instance, but the seller painted it, right? You must pass along, because one of your duties is to be fair and honest to the buyer, right? So you have to present anything and everything that could affect the transaction, regardless of who you represent, right? And vice versa. If the buyer says, hey, I lost my job, you should turn around and say to the seller, to the seller's agent or to the seller, hey, my client lost his or her job, so we're trying to see if they're still approved or not. If they're not, getting the heads up for you to decide what you want to do. Simple, right? Be honest about it, right? Ms. Lima has a question. Did you find it, Stephanie? Yep. Okay. What page was it at, Stephanie and Franciale? The second part. Oh, still under 196? Okay. Muslima, what if the seller fires you because of it? Are you still due a commission or sue for commission? A seller fires you for being too honest? Yeah, that could be a problem. Can you sue for compensation because they're the ones breaching the contract? You might be able to sue for the expenses you've had, yes. Might be able to. I'll guarantee you right now that 9 out of 10 times, just swipe left. Next. All right, 9 out of 10 times, don't worry about it. Don't go after $300 that you spent on advertisement, let's say. Don't go after that. Just get as many sellers as you can, as many buyers as you can in your pipeline. And if one falls through because of their stupidity, I'm sorry just for saying that way, but it is what it is. If one falls through, you got plenty of more. Okay? Next, property, condition, and material facts. As explained in the chapter on agency, again, might be the page that you have right now, 196 or 197. An agent has a duty to inform the client of all material facts, reports, and rumors that might affect the client's interests in the property transaction. Again, anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. A material fact is one that might affect the value or desirability of the property to a buyer if the buyer knew it. Material facts include, again, agent's opinion of property's condition. Material facts include adverse facts about the property's condition, like title defects, environmental hazards, and property's defects. Again, if you have an opinion that something might be off, voice your opinion so it gets inspected. If you see water in the basement, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a leak, but Mr. Buyer, you should do an inspection. Does that make sense? It doesn't necessarily mean there is. If you feel like the ceiling is a little off, have it inspected. There might be something structural that could be damaged and cause further damage down the line. Everything else is what you know already or might know from a regular inspection. In recent years, the disclosure standard has been raised to require an agent to disclose items that a practicing agent should know, whether you actually have knowledge or not, and regardless of whether the disclosure furthers or impedes the progress of the transaction. So it could rely on you. Facts not considered to be material. Facts not considered to be material, and therefore they're not usually subject to the required disclosure. There's things that don't impact the value of the property. So should I disclose? Should I not disclose? In this case, because it's not a material fact, you might not have to disclose at all. For instance, property stigmatization. A crime or death has occurred on the property. How does that affect the property value itself, the structure itself? It does not, right? What I feel about it, so there's two different things. What a person feels and what the value is. What I feel about it doesn't matter to me, right? I like whatever. Okay, somebody died. We die all the time. That's nature. Keep moving. It's a great house, right? Other people might be, oh my God, somebody died. There's going to be ghosts. I can't live here. No, I'm not buying this. Other people turn it into a show. You got the ghost hunters, right? They'll go into these houses. Oh my God, great. Somebody died here. Let's go film this and turn it into a 4-hour show that everything we see is black and white, and then the light shows up once in a while and ooh, it's a ghost. Just saying, everybody has a different feel or position or perspective regarding a crime or death that occurred in the property. Some people are bothered by it, others are not. But the physical condition of the property does not change for any of these buyers. You guys understand what I'm trying to say? A wall is a wall. If there's a hole on the wall, I know you guys don't see a wall, you see the screen, but there's a wall here. If you guys see a hole on the wall, all of us see a hole on the wall. You got it? If there was a crime, some people will feel like, okay, not doing this. Some will be okay with it, and some really don't care, right? Or get excited about it. The next one, it might affect a few people. This is a law that was enacted in New Jersey, and then most states took after this law, which is Megan's Law. Sex offenders. How do sex offenders affect the value of the house? They might affect the community, and it might affect you. Again, like somebody that died in the house. But the value of the house does not change. Because you're not going to say, because house is haunted. I'll get back to that in a second. Because you're not going to say, hey, I heard there's a sex offender next door, so I'm paying $10,000 less for this house. Right? Do you think a sex offender is a negotiating point for value? It's not. Right? You understanding the community, right? You understanding the community and make a decision about whether you want to be in a community where there's a sex offender, it's up to you. The person next to you might say, I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. So who cares? Right? There's people like that. So everybody has a different perspective, again, about these certain situations. These are not material facts. These do not affect the value of a wall, of a floor, of a ceiling, right? It affects our personal perspective towards a community. Are you guys understanding this? So it sucks, but we cannot even talk about sex offenders. If somebody asks you, then all you have to do is provide the registry information where they can find it. That's it. Mr. or Mrs. Potential Buyer, there's a list on the state website or the county level. There's a list of sex offenders right on the first page. Just click on that, shows you, and then you would know. I cannot provide you that kind of advice, unfortunately. You got it? Because again, the seller could sue you for advertising that next door there's a sex offender when the seller says, it's not my fault they moved in. It's my house you're talking about. Got it? Thumbs up? All right. Miguel, what about a house that is haunted? I think I addressed that. I did say some people will be afraid, some people don't care, and some people turn it into a show on TV. Okay? So still, first you have to prove to me that it's haunted and that it affects the structure of the property. Good luck with that. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. What I'm saying is prove to me that it's haunted. When you do that, everybody will have the same equal perception of that particular property, and then it might affect the value. Until then, it does not. Okay? This is page 303. Again, it still says here that it came from, everything is somewhere in chapter 14 in your book. Somewhere in chapter 14. Sorry. Next. Did you find it or no? Go to the index. The index either in the beginning or the end of the book should say property disclosures, and it will tell you where it is. But there has to be something about property disclosures that actually, hold on. Let me get the book here. Sorry, just give me one quick second. Because they just gave me a summary of what was added or removed. That's it. Did anybody find it on first edition yet? Nope. Yeah, for you it ends right there. I see. See it on page 303. You have the physical book, Verona? Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, we have it on page 303 in the PDF. We're looking in the physical book in the previous version. Okay, so one quick second. All right, let's do this. We're almost done with this. This is the last page. So guys, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna take that quick 10-minute break, and I'll search where it is in your book, if there's anything there, because I have also the PDF version, so it's easy to just search, and it'll pop up. I'll have it open here, so the next chapter, if anything, I just can quickly search where it is in your book. Okay. So to finish this, the agent may be held liable for failing to disclose a material fact if a court rules that a typical agent in that area would detect and recognize the adverse condition. There's no obligation in green, no obligation to obtain or disclose information that's immaterial to the transaction, such as property stigmas. So if somebody says, hey, did somebody die in this house? Is it your duty as an agent to go research public records and figure out if somebody died in the house? The answer is no, it's not. Okay. An agent who sees a red flag, such as a potential issue, such as a potential structural or mechanical problem, should advise the seller to seek expert advice. So like I was telling you, if there's something you see and you feel like it's off, you should advise the client right away. And also the customer needs to be aware of these issues. Red flags can seriously impact the value of the property and or cost of remediation, in addition to the property's condition per se. So they may include such things as environmental concerns, property anomalies, such as oversized or peculiarly shaped lots, and neighborhood issues. If you do know, the answer is yes, someone did die in the house. Do you have to disclose? That's a great question. You have to be very careful on how that information is going to impact your fiduciary duty. Like, who do you represent? Now it's one of those things where you know about it, doesn't affect the property, but should you disclose, right? Other things that you might see is the poor construction, signs of flooding, poor floor plan, adjacent property features. All of these you must disclose if you feel there's something that could affect the value. You must disclose. The following exhibit is a part of a typical property condition disclosure form, showing a level of detail that is expected in the seller's disclosure. So right here, it's an example of a property condition disclosure form. And if you guys can see, I'm just going to zoom in, it's easier. It has a property address, the seller names, date the seller acquired the property, if not owner occupied, how long it's been since the seller occupied. So a bunch of questions. Property age, did you ever occupy the property, and so on. Does it have any of these? Right? What is included in the property, right? Roof type, and so on. Are you, the seller, aware of any defects or malfunctions in any of the following? And you see, it has yes, no, unknown. So if you have no knowledge, which one is better? Unknown. If you know about it, say yes. If you know that there's nothing, say no. Right? So a lot of questions here. Are you aware of any of the following? Chemicals, substances, radon, all that stuff. So a lot of questions. that come with it. Okay. Oh, sorry. All right, we're gonna take that quick break right now, and then we're gonna go into environmental issues. All right, guys. So 7:30, 7:40, we're gonna be back. I'll see you guys in a bit.